Before we get into today's video, I want you to think about something. Imagine a player who could completely change the course of a basketball game without scoring a single point. A player whose energy, focus, and physicality were so intense that even NBA superstars hated playing against him. That player is Dennis Rodman, and today, we're diving into exactly how good he really was. Dennis Rodman didn't play the game like everyone else. While most players focused on putting up points or chasing highlight reel dunks, Rodman dedicated himself to something far less glamorous: rebounding. But make no mistake, he was the best at it. Not just in the league at the time, but arguably one of the best to ever do it. Legends of the game, guys who played with and against him, will tell you, he could dominate a game with rebounds alone. He'd tap the ball 3-4 times in the air just to get it, fully commit to every loose ball, and he always went up with two hands. That's a detail you'll hear a lot: two hands every time. That wasn't just discipline, it was control, power, and timing. Young players could learn so much just by watching how he rebounded. Rodman once led the entire league in rebounding at the age of 36. That's right, 36 years old. The only other players to do that at that age were legends like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. And Dennis did it despite partying all night, being out in public, and living a lifestyle that no one believed could fuel that kind of athletic dominance. Yet, there he was, out-rebounding guys half his age. He won 7 straight rebounding titles, averaging nearly 17 boards a game over that stretch. Think about that, nearly 17 rebounds a night, for 7 straight years. And the craziest part? He wasn't even that big. People thought he was 6 feet 9 inches, 260 pounds, but he was barely 6 feet 6 inches and about 220. Still, he played like a giant. He read angles, watched where the ball would go off the rim, studied film, and anticipated misses better than anyone in the game. He could pull down 20 rebounds in a game like it was nothing. And then, just to add insult to injury, he'd do it again the next night. He made rebounding cool. He made it powerful. And he made it a weapon that helped his teams win championships. In this section, we've only scratched the surface. We've talked about his rebounding greatness. But in the next part, we'll go deeper into what really made Rodman so special: his defense. The way he could lock down positions 1 through 5, frustrate Hall of Famers, and make them work for every single bucket. Stay tuned, because this story only gets better. When you talk about Dennis Rodman, rebounding is only part of the story. What really sets him apart from most players, even Hall of Famers, is his defense. Rodman wasn't just a good defender. He was elite, exceptional, and honestly, terrifying to play against. He had the rare ability to guard all 5 positions, from point guards to centers, and shut them down. Most players specialize in guarding certain types of opponents. Big men guard big men. Perimeter players stick to the outside. But not Dennis. He didn't care who you were, a 6 feet 11 inches power forward, a shifty shooting guard, or even a lightning-fast point guard. He would switch onto you and make your night a living nightmare. He wasn't just there to slow you down. He was there to stop you cold. Rodman had this combination of raw athleticism and perfect timing. His footwork was elite. Even when he stood up straight at 6 feet 8 inches, his lateral movement was incredible. Players who thought they could beat him off the dribble would get shut down, or worse, draw a charge. And this wasn't just some random effort play. This was every single night. Rodman was relentless. There are players who hustle. Then there was Dennis Rodman. He didn't just hustle, he lived in that mindset. His goal was to frustrate you, to outwork you, to make you question your game. And he did it without trash talk, without dirty plays, just pure physical presence, non-stop movement, and mental warfare. That's what made him such a powerful defender. You know how hard it is to stay mentally locked in on defense? To chase guys through screens, to fight for position under the basket, to stay focused for all 48 minutes of a game? Rodman did that, and he did it while putting up 20-plus rebounds and guarding the other team's best player. Not many players can say that. One of the most incredible things about Rodman was how smart he was defensively. He studied film obsessively. He didn't just play on instinct, he played with strategy. He knew your tendencies. He knew where you liked the ball. He could predict your move before you made it. And once he had you figured out, it was over. There's this famous moment where players who used to go up against him admitted they had to punch him early in games just to get him to back off, because he was that annoying to deal with. That's how committed he was. He was in your space, in your mind, and in your way. Game after game. People talk about how Dennis didn't score, how he didn't have offensive moves. But when you look at the bigger picture, his defense, his rebounding, his unmatched energy, you realize that he had more impact on winning than most guys who averaged 20 points a game. He changed the flow of games without even touching the ball on offense. And the crazy part, he made it look effortless. He'd show up late, sometimes only minutes before tip-off, eating chicken and rice like it was just another day. But once that whistle blew, he turned into an absolute machine on defense. He wasn't trying to fit in. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just being Dennis Rodman, and his teams trusted him because they knew, no matter how wild he seemed off the court, once he stepped on it, he would give everything he had. 7 times he made the NBA's all-defensive first team. 7 times. That's not luck. That's not hype. That's years of hard work, mental toughness, and pure passion for stopping people. And that's why legends of the game, guys like Charles Barkley, Reggie Miller, and Steve Kerr, still talk about how much they respected and hated going up against him. Rodman didn't need to score 30 points to win you a game. He'd get you stops, rebounds, extra possessions, and momentum. And honestly, that's way more valuable than a flashy dunk. Up next, we're going to talk about the engine behind all of this: Rodman's incredible athleticism, his unmatched stamina, and the work ethic that kept him going even when most people thought he was burning out. Trust me, the deeper you go into the Rodman story, the more unbelievable it gets. We've already seen how Dennis Rodman could dominate a game through rebounding and defense, but none of that would have been possible without one of the most underrated aspects of his greatness: his insane athleticism and unreal work ethic. From the outside looking in, Rodman didn't seem like the kind of guy who followed the rules. He didn't show up early to games, didn't always practice like everyone else, and definitely didn't live like a traditional professional athlete. But here's the thing: behind the wild hair, tattoos, piercings, and off-court chaos, was one of the most physically gifted and hardest-working athletes the NBA has ever seen. Let's start with stamina. Most people don't realize how much endurance it takes to be an elite defender and rebounder. You have to sprint back on defense, fight for position, crash the boards, battle in the post, and rotate constantly, all without letting up. And Rodman didn't just do it for 5 minutes or 1 quarter. He did it for entire games, back-to-back nights, and deep into playoff runs. There's a story from his days with the Detroit Pistons that says it all. After a full NBA game, a tough, physical battle, Rodman would hit the Stairmaster for another hour. Imagine that. After giving everything he had on the floor, he'd go straight to a treadmill or step machine and keep going. No cameras. No spotlight. Just effort. That's not something a coach asked him to do. That's something he demanded of himself. Even when he was out every night partying or seen in the tabloids, he'd still show up and play like a machine. His teammates couldn't understand how he did it. He didn't follow the traditional athlete lifestyle. He didn't sleep much. He wasn't eating like a bodybuilder. Yet every game, he showed up in better shape than most of the league. He was built different, literally. Rodman had a unique body type that allowed him to move like a guard and fight like a big man. He could sprint full court, guard a point guard at the top of the key, then drop down and box out a 7-footer in the paint, all in one possession. That's why many say he could have been a world-class athlete in other sports. A triple jumper. A 400-meter sprinter. Maybe even an NFL player. That's the level of natural athleticism he had. And he didn't waste it. He worked constantly. People just didn't see it. They saw the headlines, the Vegas trips, the drama. But behind all of that was a guy who trained like a madman. He'd work out after games. He'd show up to practice with more energy than anyone. And he wasn't out there shooting fadeaways or showing off handles. He was drilling fundamentals. Positioning. Footwork. Reading bounces off the rim. Things most players ignore. That's where he found his edge. Teammates say they didn't care what time he arrived, what he wore, or even what mood he was in, because once the ball was in the air, they knew Rodman was going to give 100%. Every single time. That kind of trust is rare in sports. And Rodman earned it. There's also something to be said about his mental toughness. Playing with that level of energy, in that kind of body night after night, it wears on you. Add to that the media pressure, locker room drama, and his own personal battles, and you begin to see just how strong Rodman had to be, not just physically but mentally. It takes a special kind of person to deal with that spotlight and still be the hardest worker on the team. Most people crack under that kind of chaos. Rodman thrived in it. He embraced the noise, the doubt, the attention, and then silenced it with his game. His work ethic wasn't just about physical training. It was a mindset. He was obsessed with winning. Obsessed with doing his job, even if that job didn't bring him the glory. He wasn't chasing points or popularity. He just wanted to win, and he'd do whatever it took. In the next section, we'll talk about Rodman's legacy. Not just as a player, but as a cultural icon. Someone who challenged the NBA's image, lived his truth, and still found a way to become one of the greatest to ever step on a basketball court. The story of Dennis Rodman is far from over. When we talk about legacy in the NBA, we often measure it in points, titles, MVPs, or highlight reels. But Dennis Rodman rewrote the definition of legacy. He didn't lead the league in scoring. He didn't break assist records. But what he did was arguably more rare. He built a legacy that was bigger than basketball, one that left a permanent mark on the game, the culture, and the world watching. Rodman's impact on the court was undeniable. 7-time rebounding champion. 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. 5-time NBA champion. But what made his legacy so unique wasn't just the stats, it was how he achieved them, who he was while doing it, and what he represented in a league built on image and tradition. Dennis Rodman was one of the first players to completely break the mold. Bright-colored hair. Piercings. Tattoos. wild fashion, tabloid drama. He didn't just step outside the box, he lived outside of it. And yet, in the middle of all the chaos, he played his role better than anyone else in the league. He was a warrior on the court, a disruptor on defense, and a master at the dirty work no one else wanted to do. In an era that demanded conformity, Rodman chose individuality. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. He lived loud, loved freely, and carried his battles, both public and private, with brutal honesty. And while some criticized him for being too much, his teammates, they respected him. Because they knew when the lights came on and the game began, Rodman was going to give you everything he had. He might show up to practice late, but he never showed up to a game unprepared. Rodman didn't just play basketball. He turned himself into a statement, a challenge to the system. And what's incredible is that, through it all, he never let the distractions take away from his performance. Whether he was dating a pop star, flying to Vegas during the finals, or grabbing headlines for what he wore instead of what he did, when he stepped on the court, it was game time. You got effort. You got focus. You got results. The cultural impact. Massive. Dennis Rodman became one of the first NBA players to truly cross over into global entertainment. He acted in films, starred in commercials, appeared on wrestling shows, and became a symbol of counterculture. And yet, he never let the fame soften him. He never lost the edge that made him one of the most feared defenders in NBA history. Even today, younger generations who never saw him play still know his name. Not just for the headlines, but for the way he played the game. Relentless. Sacrificial. Purpose-driven. He made being the guy who does the dirty work look heroic. That, in itself, is rare. Rodman taught us something that many players still don't understand. You don't have to be the top scorer to be the most valuable player. You don't have to lead in points to lead your team to victory. You don't have to follow the crowd to earn respect. All you need is commitment, effort, and the courage to be yourself, no matter what anyone thinks. Coaches loved him. Teammates leaned on him. Opponents hated playing against him. And fans? Fans were always watching, because with Dennis Rodman, you never knew what was coming next. And yet, you always knew it was going to be real. As we wrap up this look at one of the most iconic figures in NBA history, one thing is clear. Dennis Rodman's greatness wasn't about fitting in. It was about standing out. On the boards. On defense. And in life. Rodman wasn't just a player. He was a force. A mindset. A revolution in sneakers. That's his legacy, and it's one that will never be forgotten.